Listen carefully. Inside every person, there is an invisible line. It's the line between who you really are and who the world pressures you to become. Most people cross it without noticing. And once they do, they begin to shrink. They bend, compromise, and smooth out their edges just to be liked, just to avoid conflict, just to fit in. It starts small. You laugh off being disrespected. You nod along to things you disagree with. You tell people it's fine when deep down, it's not fine. And each time you do this, you chip away at your own strength. You trade a piece of yourself for the illusion of belonging. Before long, you're not living as you, you're living as a watered-down version that exists only for other people's comfort. And here's the hard truth. Once you make yourself small, the world doesn't lift you up. It keeps you there. Because the world almost never treats you better than the standard you set for yourself. The Stoics saw this danger centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Do you see the contradiction? You claim to value yourself, yet you surrender your self-respect in exchange for crumbs of approval. That's why you replay conversations in your head, thinking about what you should have said. That's why you feel the sting of being dismissed, but you bite your tongue to avoid making it awkward. Each time you silence your truth, you give permission for others to treat you as less. And here's the reality. People rarely elevate you above the level you demand. If you show them, you will tolerate disrespect. They'll give you more of it. If you show them, you will compromise yourself for their comfort. They will expect it again. Every time you shrink, you teach the world how to handle you. And the world listens. Understand this. The Stoic path is not about arrogance, and it is not about becoming untouchable. It's about being so rooted in who you are that no one can drag you down without your permission. Real importance isn't about being wealthy, popular, or admired. It's about living by an inner code that cannot be bought, bent, or broken. Not for approval, not for attention, not even for love. The moment you start bending that code to please others, you betray yourself. And when you stop respecting yourself, you invite everyone else to stop as well. Epictetus warned never to trade your integrity for things that don't matter. If something costs you your self-respect, the price is too high. Remember this. The strongest person is not the one who forces respect from others, but the one who never betrays their own standard of dignity. That's where true power begins. This isn't about nice-sounding motivation. It's survival for your identity. The longer you live for other people's comfort, the further you drift from yourself. The Stoics understood this was a matter of virtue, not preference. To them, self-respect was sacred. Think about it. How many times have you felt drained because you gave energy to things you didn't believe in, just to keep the peace? How many times have you said yes when your whole being screamed no? That's not kindness. That's weakness disguised as politeness. And weakness spreads like poison. Soon, you're not living for your values at all. You're performing for the approval of people who would never sacrifice for you. That is the slow death of your spirit. Stoicism says, stop, draw the line. Live by principles that cannot be negotiated, because if you don't, you'll spend your life being edited by others until there's nothing left of the original you. So here's the challenge. You must decide today. Will you keep bending, or will you stand unshakable? The Stoics never taught passivity. They taught strength through discipline, strength in silence, strength in holding your ground. Being important doesn't mean chasing recognition. It means being so loyal to your own standards that no one can buy or guilt you into lowering them. Most people crumble because they want to belong. But belonging at the cost of your own self-respect is slavery. The hard truth is this. The moment you lower yourself for others, you've told the world you can be bought cheap. And cheap things are disposable. The only way to demand respect is to show you respect yourself first. That is the price you set for your life. Stop selling yourself for approval. Stop shrinking. Choose the path of the disciplined few, the path of those who refuse to kneel to weakness. Epictetus gave a warning that cuts like a blade. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. What does that mean? It means stop living for other people's applause. If they misunderstand you, let them. If they mock you, let them. If they think you've lost your mind because you refuse to play small, let them. Your worth doesn't need their stamp of approval. Every time you explain yourself endlessly, every time you justify your choices, you are saying, I don't fully believe in myself unless you agree. That's weakness, and it costs you power. The truth is simple. Your actions should be your explanation. Your life should be your argument. The Stoics knew that clarity of action defeats the noise of justification. Speak less, do more. And if someone doesn't understand, let their confusion sit with them, not with you. Look at your own life. How much time have you wasted trying to make people get you? You explained why you left a job, why you ended a relationship, why you wanted to change your habits, why you started a new path. And half the time, the people you're explaining yourself to wouldn't even show up if you fell flat on your face. That's the brutal reality. You're handing away your power to people who have no stake in your survival. Stoicism is clear. Peace comes from focusing only on what you can control, and someone else's opinion is not in your control. Every second you spend defending your decisions to people who don't live your life is a second stolen from actually building that life. Let this sink in. You don't owe explanations to anyone who hasn't earned a place in your inner circle. Silence, backed by action, is always louder than begging for understanding. The people you respect most, the ones who carry real authority, don't defend every move they make. They act, and their actions speak. That's why others take them seriously. Meanwhile, the over-explainers, the ones who flood every decision with nervous justifications, project weakness. Imagine this. You present an idea in a meeting. If you instantly tack on 10 reasons why it might fail, or why you just thought of it, you've already lowered yourself. But if you present it clearly, confidently, and leave it standing on its own, you project certainty. That's how respect is earned. The Stoic rule is simple. Know your values, make your choices, and let your results speak. When you explain less, you command more. And when you cut the noise of insecurity, your presence grows heavier, stronger. Important people don't announce their importance. They prove it through how they carry themselves. The next time you feel that urge to justify yourself, stop and ask, does this person's understanding actually matter for me to move forward? If the answer is no, your silence is more powerful than any explanation. Seneca advised, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Notice he never said, associate with people who always understand you. The truth is, not everyone will get you, and not everyone has to. What matters is that you get yourself. Over-explaining is a signal that you've handed over your self-worth to someone else's judgment. The man or woman who simply acts with conviction is already important, not because others say so, but because they have stopped living for outside validation. That's the difference between weakness and strength. The weak defend themselves endlessly. The strong let their actions make the argument, and the world adjusts. If you want to stop lowering yourself, start by cutting your explanations. Speak less. Decide firmly. Then stand by your choice without waiting for applause. Your life is not a courtroom where every move must be defended before a jury. You don't need a panel of outsiders to validate your existence. Look at people who command quiet respect. They don't flood the room with excuses. They deliver, they move forward, and their presence carries weight because they're not begging for agreement. This is the Stoic standard: clarity over noise, conviction over approval. The next time you catch yourself rehearsing excuses, remember this truth: your silence is not weakness. It is control. Every unnecessary explanation is a tax you pay with your dignity. Stop paying it. Make your decisions. Live them, and let the results do the speaking. That's how strength is recognized without ever asking for it. Now hear this clearly. One of the fastest ways people destroy their own dignity is by competing for attention. When you chase after people who barely notice you, friends, partners, bosses, you silently announce that their approval is more valuable than your self-respect. And once you set that standard, they believe it. The more you fight to be chosen, the less they value your presence. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If your thoughts are wrapped around, how do I get them to see me? How do I prove my value? Then your actions will drip with desperation. And desperation never commands respect. The painful truth is this: you cannot force genuine respect. If someone truly sees your worth, you won't have to fight for it. If they don't, no amount of effort will make them. When you compete for someone's attention, you enter a mental auction where your worth is up for bidding. You give them the power to decide if you're valuable or not. That is dangerous, because the moment you depend on their validation, you're trapped. And here's the cruel part: sometimes they will give you attention, but only enough to keep you hooked. A reply here, a compliment there, just enough to keep you chasing. But the foundation is not respect, it's manipulation. And the second you stop trying, it disappears. This cycle is exhausting, and worse, It conditions you to measure yourself by scraps of recognition instead of by your own standard. The Stoic answer: remove yourself from the game. Stop trying to win their attention. The only race you need to run is the one toward your own discipline, your own values, your own mission. Think about the people you genuinely respect. They're not chasing anyone's spotlight. They're not begging to be noticed. They're locked into their mission, their craft, their code, and because of that, people naturally gravitate toward them. Attention becomes a side effect of purpose, not the goal. Meanwhile, the person who scrambles for attention loses value instantly because others can sense the desperation. Energy cannot be faked. You can say all the right words, but if the energy behind them screams, "Please see me, please choose me," the world reads it as weakness. The Stoics were ruthless about this. What is outside your control is irrelevant, and someone else's recognition is outside your control. Your job is not to make them notice. Your job is to sharpen yourself until you no longer care whether they do or not. That is where quiet power is born. Epictetus put it bluntly: if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Do you understand the depth of that? He's telling you to stop chasing recognition and to accept being underestimated. Why? Because the moment you're desperate to be understood or admired, you're chained. But when you stop competing for approval, you're free. If people misunderstand you, let them. If they dismiss you, let them. If they call you crazy for focusing on your path, let them. You don't need their validation. You need your own discipline. The right people will see your worth without you lifting a finger to prove it. The wrong people will never see it, no matter how much you bleed for them. So the Stoic path is clear. Live so deeply in your principles that whether the crowd claps or mocks, you remain unshaken. This doesn't mean you become cold or detached. It means you stop performing for approval. You can still care. You can still engage, but you no longer attach your self-worth to whether someone acknowledges you or not. And here's something you must understand. People can sense when you're trying too hard to win them over. Even if you hide it behind jokes, favors, or constant availability, the energy gives you away. And that energy communicates louder than words. When you stop chasing, you shift from "please see me" to "I know who I am." That shift changes everything. The people who truly matter will meet you at your level. The ones who don't will fall away. Either way, you win, because your value is no longer up for negotiation. That is the discipline of someone who commands respect without asking for it. And here's the paradox: when you finally stop competing, when you no longer care about being noticed, that's when people start noticing. The same ones who ignored you before suddenly wonder why you're not trying anymore. They feel the shift, but by then, you'll already know the truth. Attention is cheap, respect is rare, and respect can only be earned by refusing to beg for it. The Stoics would call this living above the crowd, not beneath it. Importance isn't handed to you, it's claimed. The moment you decide that your worth is not a prize for others to grant, you walk differently, you speak differently, you carry yourself differently. And ironically, that's when the world adjusts to you. Stop running in a race you never signed up for. Stand still. Let them chase the noise. You have a different finish line, one defined by discipline, not approval. Now, let's cut to another hard truth. Strength isn't always about fighting or proving yourself. Sometimes, the strongest move is to walk away, and to do it without warning, without explanation, without begging for someone to finally see your worth. Most people lower themselves by staying too long in places that drain them. They wait, hoping the disrespect will stop, hoping the other person will change, hoping they'll finally be valued. But waiting in toxicity isn't loyalty, it's self-betrayal. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." If the people around you are not elevating you, they're eroding you. Walking away isn't about being cold, it's about protecting your energy, your dignity, and your future. And the cleanest way to do it is silent action, not dramatic speeches. When you warn people before leaving, "If this doesn't change, I'm gone," you give them space to manipulate you. They'll make temporary promises, act differently for a week, or say exactly what you want to hear to keep you there. And then the pattern repeats. That's why silent departure is so powerful. It means you've already decided. You're not looking for them to fix it, to understand, or to approve. You've realized your energy is too valuable to waste on constant negotiation. Walking away without warning carries a dignity that words cannot match. There's no begging, no arguments, no drama, just the clear message that you value yourself too much to remain where you're disrespected. That silence echoes louder than any speech. The people who truly cared will notice and reach out. The ones who didn't will vanish. And that's how you know who belongs in your life. Stoicism teaches one unshakable truth. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control whether you stay in that environment. And every time you choose to stay where you are undervalued, you confirm to yourself that you accept less than you deserve. Walking away is not weakness, it is proof that you respect yourself enough to refuse crumbs. And here's the deeper effect. When you walk away without warning, you hardwire discipline into your identity. You prove to yourself that your standard is not negotiable. You teach your mind that you don't need permission to leave what poisons you. That kind of inner strength reshapes you. It tells the world, and more importantly, yourself, that your worth is untouchable. That's how you stop lowering yourself forever, by showing with action that your dignity is not up for debate. And don't mistake this for recklessness. Walking away isn't about cutting people off impulsively after small mistakes. It's about recognizing patterns. If someone consistently disrespects you, believe them. If a job constantly drains your spirit, believe it. Stop waiting for a miracle that will never come. People show you who they are through repetition, not excuses. The Stoic response is not to argue, not to beg, but to remove yourself from the reach of what diminishes you. This doesn't just apply to relationships, it applies to friendships, workplaces, even family dynamics. You don't need to broadcast your departure with a long speech. You don't need their blessing. You simply act, you walk, you reclaim your time, your peace, your dignity. That act of silent removal creates a strength that cannot be faked. It marks you as someone who will not sell their soul for belonging. And here's the beauty of this principle. When you start walking away without warning, people notice. They realize you're not the type who clings, not the type who begs, not the type who tolerates disrespect. You don't have to announce boundaries, you live them. That quiet strength commands more respect than any loud demand ever could. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, you don't need to fight, argue, or match someone's disrespect. You simply remove yourself, rise above it, and become untouchable. The person who needs to yell and plead is still chained to weakness. The one who leaves with calm certainty radiates power. Every silent step away from what disrespects you is a declaration that your standards are higher than their chaos, and the world learns to treat you accordingly. Now shift your focus to another battlefield, your time. People think lowering yourself only happens in relationships or words, but it also happens every time you hand away your hours like they're worthless. Time is life itself. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Every second you give to pointless obligations, to people who drain you, to habits that numb you, you're telling the world your life isn't valuable." And here's the brutal truth. If you don't respect your time, no one else will. They will call you at all hours. They will dump their problems on you. They will expect you to always say yes. And if you keep giving, they will keep taking. Protecting your time isn't selfish, it's survival. Because if you lose your time, you lose everything. Think of it like this. If someone handed you $86, and told you to spend it in one day, you'd guard every dollar. You wouldn't waste it on nonsense. Yet every single morning, you wake up with 86, 400 seconds, and most people throw them away without thought. They scroll, they gossip, they say yes to things they hate. They give hours to people who don't value them. Then they wonder why life feels empty. The Stoics saw wasted time as a moral failure. Not because leisure is wrong, but because ignorance of life's value is when you don't protect your hours. You are lowering yourself in silence. You're saying, "My life can be consumed by anything and anyone." Discipline starts with this. Guard your time like treasure. Because once it's gone, no power, no money, no apology can buy it back. Protecting your time means setting boundaries that people cannot cross. You must learn to say no without apology, without excuses, without feeling guilty. Every yes to something meaningless is a no to something essential, your growth, your peace, your mission. Too many people trade their future for temporary comfort because they're afraid of disappointing others. That fear is slavery. The Stoic approach is clear. Your time is the one thing fully under your control, and wasting it is self-betrayal. Treat it like gold. Schedule your hours with intention. Remove distractions that drain you, whether that's toxic people, endless scrolling, or pointless obligations. If you respect your own time, the world will mirror it back. If you don't, Everyone will consume your life on their terms. Your discipline is measured by how you spend your minutes. Guard them with the ferocity of someone who refuses to be cheap. Ask yourself this brutal question. If this were my last week alive, would I give my time to this person, this task, this habit? If the answer is no, then why are you giving it now? Most people live as if time is endless. But Marcus Aurelius warned, do not act as if you were going to live 10 years. Death hangs over you. Every hour you waste is an hour you can never recover. When you protect your time, your life gains weight, meaning, gravity. And when your life feels meaningful, you stop tolerating the things that steal from it. That's the standard of a disciplined person. You become harder to distract, harder to manipulate, harder to waste, and that makes you powerful. Because most people are soft, they let their days be stolen. But you will not anymore. Now, let's sharpen another weapon. Your words. One of the most overlooked ways people lower themselves is by talking too much, filling silence with noise, proving their intelligence, chasing approval with endless chatter. Words are powerful, but when scattered carelessly, they lose all weight. The Stoics placed discipline on speech because they knew restraint is strength. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, taught that speech must serve truth and purpose, not ego. Epictetus reminded us, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. The more you talk without aim, the more you invite others to twist your words, doubt you, or dismiss you. But when you speak less and mean more, every word lands with force. People stop hearing you as background noise and start listening with respect. Silence is not emptiness, it's control. Think about the people you respect most. They're not the loudest in the room. They're the ones who listen, observe, and then speak with precision. When they open their mouths, you pay attention because you know their words are measured and intentional. That's the discipline you must adopt. When you speak constantly, your voice becomes cheap. But when you hold your tongue until your words serve a clear purpose, your voice gains authority. Stoicism teaches restraint not to suppress you, but to sharpen you. Too many people damage their dignity by blurting out promises they can't keep, venting anger they later regret, or explaining things that don't need to be explained. Control your speech, and you control how the world perceives you. Silence builds presence. Precision builds respect. Together, they form a power that noise can never touch. When you speak without control, it often comes from fear of being ignored, fear of being forgotten, fear of not mattering. But here's the truth. People remember silence more than noise. They remember the one who stayed calm in chaos, who didn't rush to defend themselves, who didn't flood the room with excuses. That presence carries more weight than any argument ever could. The Stoics knew the gap between stimulus and response is where strength lives. When you pause before speaking, you give your mind room to filter out the unnecessary and deliver only what matters. Discipline in speech is discipline in thought, and discipline in thought is freedom. The undisciplined talker is chained to impulse. The disciplined speaker commands respect without raising their voice. That's why silence, used wisely, is not weakness. It's the sharpest blade you carry. Speaking less is not about being distant. It's about being intentional. Every word you hold back increases the weight of the ones you release. The more selective you are, the more power your voice carries. Think about it. A person who talks endlessly is forgotten quickly, but the one who chooses their moments leaves an imprint. Stoicism demands this discipline because it forces you to live with clarity. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That's Marcus Aurelius's filter, and it's the standard you must adopt. Apply this rule and watch how fast your communication sharpens. When you stop filling silence with insecurity, people lean in to hear you. Your restraint becomes authority. Your quiet becomes influence. And your words transform from cheap filler into undeniable commands. From now on, before you speak, ask yourself, is this necessary? Does this add value? Or am I speaking to fill space? To prove something? To earn approval? If the answer is weak, hold your tongue. Let silence carry your presence instead. When you master restraint, you gain control over your narrative. You decide what others know, when they know it. And how they hear it, that control is power. It prevents others from twisting your words, and it ensures that when you do speak, your voice cuts through the noise. Remember, silence can be an answer, a boundary, and a statement all at once. And when paired with discipline, it commands a respect that chatter never will. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs clarity. And clarity comes from the one who speaks less but means more. Understand this. Silence is not emptiness, it is leverage. The undisciplined person blurts out their feelings, exposes their plans, reveals their weaknesses without thinking. The disciplined one observes, listens, waits, and then strikes with words that cannot be ignored. That's why restraint is so powerful. It keeps you unpredictable. People cannot use what you do not reveal. They cannot twist what you never said. They cannot control the narrative if you own the timing of your speech. Marcus Aurelius gave the ultimate filter. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Imagine if every word you spoke passed through that gate. Your voice would instantly carry more respect, because it would never be wasted. Remember, silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And strategy always wins over impulse. Here's the reality. Lowering yourself is rarely one big dramatic collapse. It's the small leaks that sink the ship. A compromise here, a silence there, an extra effort for someone who wouldn't cross the street for you. Piece by piece, you erode your own respect until one day you look in the mirror and wonder why you feel invisible. The Stoics warned against this erosion. They knew importance doesn't come from titles, applause, or noise. It comes from living by a code you refuse to betray. Every moment you shrink, you sell a piece of that code. And once it's gone, so is your dignity. That's why you must be ruthless about drawing lines. You cannot wait for others to define your worth. You must define it yourself, live by it without compromise, and let the world adjust or fall away. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the foundation of everything. You can't control whether people respect you. You can't control whether they notice you, like you, or applaud you. But you can control your own standards, your own discipline, your own code. And once you take command of that, you stop lowering yourself, because you no longer depend on the outside world for validation. Respect becomes an inside job. And here's the truth. The more you respect yourself, the less tolerance you'll have for anything beneath your standard. You won't need to scream about it. You'll simply live it. And the world, whether it wants to or not, will start to treat you at the level you've demanded of yourself first. Never forget this. The world will always test you. People will push to see how much disrespect you tolerate, how much of your time they can steal, how much of your dignity you're willing to trade for comfort. And if you bend once, they'll push again. If you explain yourself once, they'll demand it again. If you compete for attention once, they'll expect you to keep performing. That's why discipline is non-negotiable. Your code must be unbreakable. The moment you betray it, you set the price for how cheap you can be bought. The Stoics didn't live for comfort, they lived for strength. And that's the path you must choose, not popularity, not approval, strength, because when your inner standard is steel, the world has no choice but to adjust around you, or fall away. So, now the choice is in front of you. Keep living small, bending, explaining, competing, and giving away your time, or draw the line today. The Stoics weren't philosophers of comfort. They were warriors of discipline. They lived by codes no one could rewrite, and that's why their words still echo centuries later. From this moment on, commit to yourself. No more shrinking. No more selling your dignity for approval. No more cheap trades of self-respect. You are the gatekeeper of your worth. And the standard you set is the standard the world will pay. Stand firm. Walk away when respect is gone. Guard your time like treasure. Speak less. Mean more. And above all, never betray yourself again. Respect yourself so completely that the world has no option but to follow your lead. Because the truth is simple. The respect you demand from others will never rise higher than the respect you demand from yourself. And now it's on you. Don't just nod your head and move on. Draw the line today. Stop lowering yourself. Stop wasting time. Stop selling your dignity for approval. The Stoics lived by discipline, not excuses. And so, if this message struck something inside you, let it be the push to act differently starting right now. Drop a comment below and tell me the standard you refuse to compromise on. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, change doesn't happen by watching. It happens by choosing. Thanks for listening, and welcome to Momentum Mindset, where every word is fuel for action